Welcome to Australian Politics. I'm Lachlan. Today, we're exploring a complex and significant issue that's been increasingly affecting our political landscape: the impact of foreign influence campaigns on Australian public discourse. In particular, we'll be examining a concept known as Hasbara, a sophisticated communication strategy that's been making waves in our national conversation. This is a topic that touches on some of the most fundamental aspects of our democracy, from how we discuss international issues to the way different communities interact within our multicultural society. Throughout this episode, we'll break down what Hasbara means, how it operates in Australia, and most importantly, what it means for our political independence and social cohesion. We'll look at concrete examples, examine its various manifestations in our media and politics, and discuss why this matters to every Australian, regardless of their political beliefs or cultural background. Let's dive deeper into understanding what Hasbara actually is. The term itself comes from Hebrew and literally translates to explanation, but its modern application goes far beyond simple clarification. What started as a way to explain Israel's perspective has evolved into a comprehensive and sophisticated communication strategy. Think of Hasbara as a carefully orchestrated public relations campaign, but one that operates on multiple levels simultaneously. While traditional PR might focus on promoting a product or service, Hasbara works to shape entire narratives and influence public opinion on complex geopolitical issues. This isn't just about presenting information, it's about controlling the conversation. Through various channels, from social media to traditional news outlets, from cultural programs to diplomatic relations, Hasbara has developed into a multifaceted approach to managing public perception. In the Australian context, this strategy has become particularly noticeable in recent years. It operates through a network of organisations, advocacy groups, and media channels, all working together to present a specific narrative about Israeli policies and actions. What makes this especially interesting is how it's adapted to our local political and social environment, using distinctly Australian references and contexts to resonate with our audience. The sophistication of this approach lies in its ability to blend seamlessly into existing conversations while subtly steering them in particular directions. It's not just about defending positions. It's about framing the entire discussion in a way that makes certain viewpoints seem more legitimate than others. Let's look at how these influence operations actually work in practice. One of the most visible tactics is the coordinated use of social media campaigns. These aren't just random posts. They're strategically timed, carefully worded messages that flood various platforms during key moments of public debate or political tension. These campaigns often employ multiple approaches simultaneously. You might see emotional personal stories shared widely, alongside more aggressive responses to critics. What's particularly noteworthy is the speed and coordination of these efforts, with identical messaging appearing across different platforms and accounts within minutes. Beyond social media, there's a sophisticated approach to influencing decision-makers. This includes organising exclusive briefings for politicians, arranging sponsored trips to Israel, and maintaining regular contact with key diplomatic personnel. These relationships are cultivated over time, building networks of influence that can be activated when needed. The strategy extends into our cultural sphere as well. Educational programs, cultural exchanges, and community events are organised with specific messaging goals in mind. These seemingly neutral activities often carry carefully crafted narratives that align with broader strategic objectives. One of the more concerning aspects is the targeting of critics and dissenting voices. This can range from coordinated online attacks to more subtle forms of pressure, such as contacting employers or professional associations. The goal appears to be creating an environment where certain viewpoints become too costly to express publicly. Media management is another crucial component. This involves not just placing favourable stories, but also working to marginalise or discredit reporting that doesn't align with preferred narratives. This can include everything from flooding comment sections to organising formal complaints against journalists or media outlets. One of the most concerning aspects we need to examine is how claims of anti-Semitism are being wielded in our political landscape. According to several reports, there's a growing pattern of these accusations being used not just to address genuine instances of discrimination, but as a political tool to shape public discourse. The evidence suggests that while anti-Semitic incidents do occur in Australia, there's a significant gap between the severity of the situation being portrayed and the documented reality. Most reported incidents involve online harassment or verbal abuse, with very few cases of physical confrontation. What's particularly troubling is how this narrative appears to be deliberately amplified to achieve specific political outcomes. When public figures or organisations raise concerns about certain policies or actions, they often face immediate and severe backlash, with accusations of anti-Semitism used to delegitimise their positions, regardless of the actual substance of their arguments. This dynamic has created a chilling effect on public debate. Many politicians, journalists, and academics report self-censoring on certain topics, fearing the professional and personal consequences of being labelled anti-Semitic. This fear extends beyond discussions directly related to Israel, affecting broader conversations about foreign policy, community relations, and social justice. The implications for our democracy are significant. When legitimate policy debates are shut down through the weaponization of serious accusations like anti-Semitism, we lose the ability to have honest, nuanced discussions about complex international issues. This not only undermines the quality of our public discourse, but also risks trivializing the very real and serious issue of actual anti-Semitism in our society. Let's examine how these influence campaigns have created ripple effects throughout Australian politics and media. The impact has been particularly noticeable in how political parties approach certain foreign policy issues, with evidence suggesting a significant shift in the way these matters are discussed in public forums. One of the most visible effects has been on our mainstream media landscape. Many journalists and news organisations have reported feeling constrained in their coverage of certain international events. This self-censorship isn't just about avoiding controversy. It's fundamentally reshaping how news is reported to the Australian public. The influence extends deep into our political system, where we're seeing interesting patterns emerge in how political parties engage with these issues. Some charitable organisations, despite their tax-exempt status, have become increasingly involved in political advocacy. This raises important questions about the role of foreign-influenced groups in our democratic processes. These campaigns have also affected relationships between different community groups in Australia. We're witnessing growing divisions, not just between different ethnic or religious communities, but within communities themselves. Many Australians with diverse viewpoints feel their perspectives are being marginalised or misrepresented in the broader national conversation. The political discourse has become increasingly polarised, with complex international issues being reduced to simplistic left versus right debates. This oversimplification doesn't serve our national interests and makes it harder to develop nuanced, effective policies that reflect Australia's independent foreign policy priorities. Perhaps most concerning is the impact on our democratic institutions. When foreign influence campaigns successfully shape political narratives and policy decisions, it raises serious questions about our ability to maintain truly independent positions on international issues. This influence doesn't just affect our foreign policy. It ripples through domestic politics, affecting everything from community relations to media freedom. One of the most concerning aspects of these influence campaigns is their effect on Australia's social fabric. We're seeing growing tensions between different community groups, particularly in our major cities, where these international conflicts are playing out in our own backyard. These campaigns aren't just creating division between different ethnic or religious groups. They're causing rifts within communities themselves. Take the Jewish Australian community, for instance, where many individuals who hold different views about these issues often find their voices drowned out by louder, more organised groups, claiming to speak for the entire community. What's particularly troubling is how these campaigns can turn legitimate policy discussions into sources of community conflict. When complex international issues are oversimplified and weaponized, it creates an environment where constructive dialogue becomes nearly impossible. People who try to engage in balanced discussions often find themselves labelled and attacked, leading to a chilling effect on public debate. We're also seeing the impact in our educational institutions and community organisations. These spaces, which should be forums for open dialogue and understanding, are increasingly becoming battlegrounds for competing narratives. This makes it harder for different communities to work together on shared local issues that affect all Australians. The erosion of social cohesion isn't just about disagreements over international issues. It's about how these campaigns are changing the way Australians relate to each other. When people feel they can't express their views without being attacked or labelled, it damages the open multicultural society we've worked so hard to build. This atmosphere of fear and self-censorship goes against everything that makes Australia's diverse community strong and unified. So, what can be done to address these challenges? Several concrete steps have been proposed by experts and community leaders that could help restore balance to our political discourse and strengthen our democratic institutions. First, there's a pressing need to reform our regulations around political lobbying and foreign influence. This includes reviewing the status of organisations that operate as charities while engaging in political activities. We need clearer guidelines and stronger enforcement mechanisms to ensure transparency in how foreign influence campaigns operate within Australia. Media reform is another crucial area. Our journalists and news organisations need support and protection to report on these issues without fear of backlash. This could include strengthening laws against intimidation of the press and developing industry guidelines for balanced coverage of complex international issues. Creating safe spaces for genuine dialogue between different community groups is essential. This means establishing forums where people can discuss sensitive topics without fear of being labelled or attacked. Local councils and community organisations could play a vital role here, facilitating conversations that bridge divides rather than deepen them. We also need to better educate Australians about how influence campaigns work and their impact on our democracy. This could include developing media literacy programs and providing resources to help people identify and resist manipulation attempts. Finally, there's a need to reinforce the distinction between legitimate criticism of government policies and discrimination against any community. This means developing clearer frameworks for public discourse that protect both free speech and community harmony. As we wrap up today's discussion, it's clear that the influence of foreign propaganda campaigns on Australian politics is not just a theoretical concern, but a practical challenge that affects our daily lives and our democracy. The sophistication and scale of these operations raise serious questions about the integrity of our public discourse and the independence of our political decision-making. We've seen how these influence campaigns can divide communities, distort public debate, and sometimes even silence important voices in our democracy. The impacts ripple through our media landscape, our political institutions, and our social fabric. This isn't just about one particular issue or community. It's about protecting the fundamental principles of Australian democracy. Looking ahead, maintaining our political independence and social cohesion will require vigilance and commitment from all of us. Whether you're a journalist, politician, community leader, or engaged citizen, we all have a role to play in fostering honest, balanced discussions about complex international issues, while staying true to our values of fairness and open debate. The strength of Australian democracy has always been our ability to have robust, respectful discussions about difficult issues. As we face these challenges, it's crucial that we preserve this tradition while adapting to new threats to our democratic discourse. Our future as a cohesive, independent nation depends on it. Thanks for joining me today on Australian Politics. Until next time, keep thinking critically and engaging thoughtfully with the issues that shape our nation.